welcome in everybody. Welcome to the world of NomNom. This is a BlahBlah podcast. That's not official naming yet, but um, here with me is Bryce Papenbrook, Tessa Jones, Johnny Dunn, and Hunter George. Some creatives, friends of mine, and we're just here to kind of sit down, slow things down a little bit, and just kind of have a fun conversation, diving into our backgrounds and the worlds we come from and what led us to where we are now. And I'm sure we kind of all come from different backgrounds, different walks of life. But I feel like even though we have those differences, all of our chosen paths have kind of led us in a similar direction. But Bryce, beginning with you, you know, where did this kind of all begin for you? Like, I know you have some background within voice acting and stuff. I know your father was a voice actor, but
Yeah,
where did it all begin for you? Like, what did you want to be when you grew up? Was it a voice actor?
yeah. Actually, it wasn't my first passion. I started my first kind of love was martial arts, and I started karate when I was 5. Really, really loved it. My mom put me into it because I was small and she wanted me to learn how to defend myself. And it's really that martial arts lifestyle that has, I think, contributed to my success as a voice actor. I mean, you learn to work towards something that's really, really difficult and really, really challenging and just not give up, to continue to just practice and learn and grow. And it's kind of similar skill sets that you need to be successful as a voice actor. But you're right, I do have a history of a family of actors. It was because of my dad that I got started. He was working on a show 8 years old, and I used to love to go in and watch him work. He was voicing this character called Rito Revolto, the skeleton dude on Power Rangers, and a bunch of the
Oh yeah.
monsters. He worked for like VR Troopers and Big Bad Beetleborgs, if you remember like those shows back in the day. Um, so yeah, I used to love to go in. They had like the studio and all the like rubber monster suits like lining the stairs up to the sound stage, and it was just fun to be around it. And at the end of one of his sessions, they needed a kid's voice, and he was like, "He's a kid, throw him in the booth." And that's how I got started. Just right place, right time, and just pretended to be my dad and got to play some random kid in the background of Power Rangers. That was my very first time in the booth. Um,
Where was
Not a
that?
lot of
Where
your
were you
dreams,
based?
man.
yeah, I'm born and raised in Los Angeles, and Saban at the time had a studio out in Valencia. It was like not far from where Magic Mountain is, and there was just like these big like sound stages, and they used to shoot out there too. So you would get people walking around in costumes and stuff. It was a fun place to be around, especially as a kid and like a martial artist too. Like I just loved going out there and being around that stuff.
Yeah, that almost sounds kind of like the perfect combo to kind of get into what you're doing. A little mix of what you do now, and Power Rangers is all about martial arts and stuff. So
Yeah,
it's probably for
exactly.
you like, oh my God, like
It was super cool. And my vocal training, like I wasn't traditionally trained as an actor. I didn't go to school for it. I learned both on the job and from screaming at kids in the gym. That's where I've really learned to scream, and that's become my specialty, is screaming as a bunch of characters in different shows. They all seem to find their way to screaming. Um,
so.
You're so good at screaming, dude. You're so good at it.
Appreciate that. I was doing a little bit of screaming today in this room. I'm in my studio at my house, working on something very, very cool. I can't wait to share. I can't talk about it yet, but one day I'll share with you guys. And yeah, I've done a good amount of screaming in my career. Anime characters love to scream, and
Oh yeah.
I feel like what you have in store for me maybe in the future, and NomNom will involve some screaming too, and I'm up for the challenge.
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
just
It's
from
an art form,
Yeah.
and just from watching you work too, Bryce, it's you've definitely mastered your craft. Let's just say that.
I really appreciate that. I love what we've been able to do. One of my favorite things to do as a voice actor is create characters, to kind of learn about them, to kind of pull other elements from their surroundings, anything from art to music to just even descriptions of what they did growing up and who they are as a character. Like, taking all that information and kind of pulling it all together into a voice is really, really fun. And the experience of kind of coming up with who Ralph is, that was awesome. I'm sure we'll circle back to NomNom. I won't get too far ahead of us.
Yeah. Um. So, you got a pretty early start, Bryce, but was it right there in that moment that you kind of had a transitioning and like I'm sure it became more and more of a passion, but was it like kind of this is something I want to do? And when you did get older and high school and stuff, what kind of jobs did you work, or you kind of immediately like I know what I could do?
Yeah, I never thought that I would go down this path. I saw how difficult it was to be a working actor. You go through these kind of ups and downs, and it's so challenging to book work. I just thought it was fun as like being around it. I thought it would be really cool to be a part of it. I just never thought that it would line up and work out in the way that it has. I had gotten thrown in the booth a couple times as a kid. Worked on things like Cowboy Bebop and Trigun. I play Vash the Stampede when he was a kid. Johnny Young Bosch plays Vash as an adult. And now I get to work with Johnny in things like Blue Exorcist, where I'm the older brother. Haha, Johnny. So yeah, I had been around it quite a bit. It wasn't until later, until college, really, that I made the decision to really start working towards it and started seeing a true opportunity. I thought I was going to be an attorney. I went to UCLA. I studied political science and philosophy, and now that degree is a beautiful decoration on my wall. I started getting a little more serious because, like all college students, got to make some money. So I tried to get out there and get some voice work and started finding some success and thought, wow, this sounds like a lot more fun than studying in the law library. Maybe I'll give this a shot, and haven't looked back.
So you
That's
said
so cool,
ups
man.
and downs, ups and downs. So through your experience, because sometimes from the outside looking in, things look so bright and awesome, but you kind of said there is a lot of ups and downs. What are some of those pros and cons that you've experienced? Kind of enlighten people that it's not always the grass isn't always greener, but if it's something you want to pursue, be prepared for.
Yeah, I tell people, if you book 1 out of 100 auditions, you're doing incredibly well as a voice actor. It's almost like buying lotto tickets, and you keep trying out for these things that would be so fun, and most of the time, the response is nothing, just radio silence. You might also work incredibly hard for a very long time, finally get cast in that really cool thing, go in and record episode 1, and your character gets blown up that day and unemployed. So like that is very, very common. I feel like I've won the anime lottery. I've been so lucky to find characters that just keep coming back, or I mean, in the words of Shiro Emiya, people die when they are killed, but I've added unless they're voiced by Bryce Papenbrook. That's what tends to happen. My characters don't actually die, which is
Price's
the best
characters
thing.
always come back, usually as a big gigantic monster.
There we go. There we go. A little bit of job security is so nice. So, I mean, the ups and downs are like constantly employed and then unemployed, hopefully employed again, but you just never know. There's no rhyme or reason for when a long project will come through. I wish I knew how to book an audition and I could tell you guys the secret. I just try to do things that make me happy and just have fun with it and hope that whoever's listening on the other side feels that energy.
And we do. We
Mhm.
do.
Oh,
But
we do. Yeah.
speaking of which, just recently on your Instagram, you posted um, a recording of one of your very last times in the booth as Eren Yeager from Attack on Titan. Just from what I saw in the video, it looked like it was quite the emotional experience. Could you, kind of take us through that and what that was like? Wrapping up one of
Yeah,
those very long roles.
definitely. It was a decade of an incredible experience, and while the show has kind of ended, I think that experience isn't quite done because it just lives on as new people discover the show, and I get to meet fans at events, and still kind of celebrate it. Like it just kind of lives on. I mentioned I wasn't formally trained as an actor, so my method is to feel what my characters are feeling. And in that moment, without kind of spoiling the end of Attack on Titan, it was a rough time for kind of everyone. So I really tried to feel those emotions, and it was really special that Crunchyroll marketing was there, and they were interested in kind of capturing those last moments and allowed me to share them with everybody. Because most of the time we sign these NDAs, which means we can't say anything or they'll sue us. So I tend to not share any pictures of me working or videos of me in the booth, just to be extra careful. But in that moment, it was really cool that someone was there in the booth with me, kind of capturing those last seconds with Eren. And I just love how they all came together. I was really lucky also to be able to be there with Mike McFarland. If you guys don't know who Mike is, he's one of the most senior directors of anime out there. Such an incredible person, such a talented actor. He plays Jean. He's also Master Roshi. So, like, in my first sessions recording Attack on Titan, I had never worked with Mike before. I had never met him before going out there to record in Dallas. And I was just in the booth, first lines, and I'm like, I'm being directed by Master Roshi. Like, how cool is this? And yeah, over the last 10 years, like I've grown really close with Mike, and he's just such an incredible director. So I made sure I was back in Dallas to finish the show the way we started. Because
Yeah.
seasons 2, 3, and most of 4, I was in either this room or I mentioned I had built a little closet booth at the beginning of the pandemic. I was also screaming in my closet for some of Attack on Titan. Um, so I was remote from everyone, but we were lucky enough that they let me finish in Dallas with Mike the way we started. So it was just a really special moment, and I just tried to leave it all in the booth.
Well, big shout out to Mike Farland, and maybe you can introduce us sometime. I'd love to meet him.
Yeah, I hope you run into him. He's just such a great guy.
Yeah. Well, to wrap up, Bryce, you're kind of touching upon like the emotional experiences and stuff, and which made me think of kind of like music and stuff, and like the song that was developed for the NomNom project, which was developed by Hunter George here. Um, Hunter, what about you, man? Like Mr. Audio Engineer, killing it, killing the game. Where did it all begin for you, bud?
Yeah, I've got a really kind of a wild journey. I grew up in Reno, Nevada, so it's not really a town that breeds like aspiring entertainment. Most of the entertainment is like through the casinos where they come for a night and get the hell out of there as soon as they can. So, but we had a nice little. Actually, before that, a bug hit me when I was like 17. I had just graduated high school, and back in the day, they like take you into the library and they go, "What do you want to do?" And they give you a book because there was no Google, or whatever, to be like, "What kind of shit do you want to do for a living?" So you look, and you're like, I guess I'll go through like poli-sci or some bullshit, I got out of high school with just like no clue like what I'd want to do, and then something hit me where someone was like, "You'd be a good DJ," and I was like, "What?" And then, but one thing that as a kid I always would study songs, like especially around high school and middle school, where like for instance like Dr. Dre or Kanye West was doing a lot of really interesting things production wise, but I had no idea what they were doing. I played piano since I was 4, and then also I gave that up, played some sports, and then by high school I was kind of just like hanging out with friends and partying and stuff like that. So I had no real like career aspirations. But in essence, I kind of grew this bug in me when someone said that to me, and they were like, "Oh, you'd be a good DJ." And I was very obsessed with production at that time. So I was like I was actually writing down samples of old records that I thought sounded cool in notebooks and stuff like that. And I didn't know how to do that, but I thought like, oh, this would sound interesting as like a hip hop track or whatever. So, and there was no YouTube tutorials, and there was no nothing like in that way. You had to fucking crawl under a bridge and ask a guy and slip him $20, and then he would point you in the right direction of where someone made beats one day. And finally, I found somebody on this old ancient platform called MySpace, and he made beats with like a drum machine called an MPC, and he was like, "Come over on Saturday," and so I came over, and the guy just fucking blew my mind. And I've been taking like production course in my community college at the time, and it was the wackest shit I've ever done. And so it was like, this can't be how they make music, and finally this guy showed me, and it was just really dope, and it committed me to wanting to be better at piano, to be able to contribute what he was doing. So I basically committed like 5 hours a day piano, like through college, and which is like got to a point where I was like playing on top of these samples he would chop up of like old records, and then we started to partner up, and then we started to enter these things called beat battles, and we actually won a lot of them. And you would go head to head with other producers, either locally or at the time we were producing for a lot of local artists and rappers and musicians, and we would essentially catch the tours off of like bigger acts that were coming into town, and they would hit Reno, and then they would hit the Bay Area. They would hit Auburn, Sacramento, then they would hit like Vallejo and San Francisco. So we would catch their tour and go with them to some of those spots. And so, I toured with like Murs and Grouch and Eli and Del the Funky Homo Sapien, or Hieroglyphics, his group Hieroglyphics, and just a bunch of these kind of really big like underground acts. And then we were winning these beat battles, and that really was really great because you got to see immediate feedback on the music you were making. Like if we put in some crazy drum fill or like some kind of thing that to like shock the audience, we could see the immediate response. Or if it fell flat, we were like, "Ooh, that was fucking cringy," and so we would be able to kind of go back and tweak our process. But pretty quickly, I got burnt out. I was 19, 20 in 21 and up clubs. In Reno, there's no curfew, so you can, like here in Los Angeles, like 2 a.m. is like the bars close, right? So I would start my DJ sets at like 3 a.m. and get out of the fucking club at like 6 in the morning. And I was an underage kid, and like I was like, yeah, this sucks, I'm retiring at 20 from DJing, and I also felt like this is about as good as you're going to get here in this town, right? And a lot of the people around me were like just not very creatively supportive. They, my family was okay, but like everyone kind of had that like just get a fucking real job mentality. And so I was working in construction, and you know, I was working in car sales and all these just kind of jobs that I was like, this isn't it, you know. And I got to see some really tough stuff in those. But a lot of people get into drugs. A lot of people kind of have really tough journeys when they do a lot of that stuff. So, or resort to alcoholism. So I really made a note like, yo, this is your path. Like, you want to go down this line with this career path. That's what it could lead to, right? And then so it really made me go like, yo, shake out of this. And so I wanted to commit to being better at music and production, and moved to Los Angeles. Started going to fucking recording school, Los Angeles recording school, and then 3 months into me being in LA, my fucking car takes a shit, and I'm basically riding the bus and biking and walking for like the first couple of years I was in LA, and that to me added a lot to my texture to my story, because it's like, do you really want this? And I kept going like, yeah, and it's gonna get tough for you, and so it was me kind of having to, I guess, push through and prove that. You know, a lot of kids that I grew up with moved to LA, and they made it like 6 months, and then they fucking moved back home after 6 months because they couldn't hack it. And, you know, it's nothing against them, but you know, it really takes, and I'm sure Bryce knows, it really takes like something else, like digging deep in a different type of way to kind of establish yourself out here. So, and all of the accolades that I just spoke about meant nothing when I moved here. It was just absolute, yo, who gives a fuck? You see this line? It's like, get in the back and start over. So what was really great about that is it kind of like really, I had a little bit of an ego as a kid, and that took that right away, because just everyone makes music here. Everyone's a phenomenal A-list actor. Everyone's a fucking, whatever, producer, whatever the fuck it is. So you really had to kind of humble yourself. And so I started working. I just needed a job. I moved to LA with like $200 in my account, and my first month's rent paid, and I had no job. And I just had to literally pound the pavement, because, you know, again, pre like online computer applications era. So you're like getting those tearaway fucking application papers and going in, or they would have a computer and you would like fill out on their computer, you know? And so I just was hustling to get a job, you know? And then I got this job at this sneaker shop, like a rare sneaker, like Dunks and Jordans and like skate men's apparel. And I kind of like lied about my accolades. I was, 21 or something. And I was like, yeah, I can do eBay sales. I can do this and that. It was called Hot Rod. Actually, this is the brand. This LA is their logo. And I ended up just like folding T-shirts, and then they had me like taking pictures of old shoes that they had and putting them on eBay. And so I got really good at eBay. I was doing like 40 grand a month on eBay. And then, which I guess leads to this trading card hustle that we've all kind of been involved in, as many people in the audience know me from. But anyway, the long story of that is I ended up becoming the marketing director of the store, and I was the sneaker photographer, and I got to be really good at comic book art, because I was like trying to get really good at graphic design for the store, to do flyers or photography or whatever, and just know Photoshop better. And this guy comes into my store, and it was very common. Like Justin Bieber would come in. I don't know if you guys know like Neil Brennan, but he was like a regular. He created the Chappelle Show. And then like Andrew Santino, like before he was famous, was just kind of a comedian. Now he's like this massive kind of podcaster and comedian. And it was kind of that spot, like a generation grew up there. Jonah Hill worked there before I did. And it was kind of this thing. Actually, Jonah Hill made a movie about mid-90s or something. It's called Mid-90s. And that movie is about the store that I worked at. So anyway, this guy comes into my store, and I was like, hey, what the fuck's good with you? How are you, man? And he's like, oh, good. I just got back from Atlanta. I was just on the set of Iron Man 2. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And he's like, oh, yeah, I'm a music supervisor on all the Marvel movies. And I was like, what the hell's that? I don't even know what that is, And he's like, oh, I put these soundtracks together, and I work with the composer, and I'm like, well, huh, I make beats, you know, you should kind of put my music in there. And he's like, yeah, whatever, kid. And then, but I got his number and I told him I was going to recording school. And that was really helpful because I got to like really learn foundations of audio and sound and sonics. And that's something that is, you know, going from just accidentally making good beats to like actually knowing exactly what you're doing in that situation. There's a level of craftsmanship there that you can't take for granted, I guess. But anyway, I didn't get my beats in his fucking movies or whatever, but I got his coordinator's email, I got his email, and I would hit them every time like some rare shit came in, like a rare Nike Dunk or whatever, and I got a sense of like what he liked, and so I just was building that relationship. Um, anyway, long story long, after I graduated, he was representing a composer at that time who was just kind of hitting his stride. He had just worked on when I started. I got an internship with him. He was working on Ride Along with Ice Cube and Kevin Hart. He was doing a project with Alan Menken that was secret, and Alan Menken did like Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid and all these huge Disney movies. The music for them, probably the most prolific composer of all time and songwriter. But and then it was insane. The first day I was there, I got to go to the Sony scoring stage on the Sony Pictures lot. Fucking gate opens up for you, and you're like, oh, I guess only 1% of all humanity has been in this lot, you know. And so I go to the scoring stage, and it's the old MGM building, so it's where they did Wizard of Oz, you know, back in the day, the music and stuff. And so you could just feel it in there. And then, you know, again, I walk in, you open a door, and it's like the fucking Starship Enterprise cockpit, and there's just like 50 people working on like this project. You know, you got an engineer, you got fucking Sulu like navigating and intergalactic space, and you got you know, a bunch of people like looking over these charts, and like 5 engineers and assistants, and you look out through the window of the Enterprise, and all of a sudden you see like 100 musicians just fucking ready to rock, and you got a conductor, and all of a sudden it gets really quiet, and then you see this like movie on the screen that's not released yet, or a show, and then you're hearing the score of this movie like it's in a movie, and it's actually happening live before your eyes, and these fucking musicians are executing it like perfectly, like pitch perfect, no mistakes. And then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like sit in the back and eat a bagel and just not talk to anybody, because I just was like clearly out of my league, you know. But it was so fascinating, and I was just like, this is it. This is fucking it. All of the things that I've done before this, I was like, I'm in this room now, you know. And so I've spent the last 12 years, 13 years trying not to leave those rooms. And another little kind of side part to my story is I worked with this Japanese rock star named Yoshiki. He has a band called X Japan. They're a massive band in Japan. They're kind of like U2 level there. And it really started to teach me about international music scene. And my first 3 months there, I was doing his marketing for him. I did like all of his marketing for 3 months from then. When I started, he was doing Madison Square Garden, headlining Madison Square Garden, and New York Comic Con in the same weekend. And the reason I got the job there was because of all my comic book art. They saw it, and they're like, well, he has a deal with Stan Lee and Sanrio, a Hello Kitty doll called Yoshi Kitty. And the person who was managing that just like quit. So we don't have anybody to help us work with Stan Lee. And I was like, I don't even know who this guy is, but say no more, you know? Yeah. But they saw my portfolio on like fucking one of those, I can't remember what site I had it on, but you know, I just randomly kind of threw that in the mix, and I was just hoping to do like multimedia work for them when I was kind of coming up. And you know, 3 months in, I'm doing stuff on Times Square, billboards in Times Square. I've done like all these spreads in Variety magazine. I did all the assets for New York Comic Con, and then now I'm project managing an animated project with Stan Lee, managing his likeness, and the core of that is the guy that was managing him at the time was a really big music supervisor, and he did Rush Hour and Spawn and Blade and all these really great 90s kind of blockbusters, and he kind of just took me under his wing, and over the years I've kind of started to navigate on my own, and most recently I worked on Glass Onion for Netflix. I was a music consultant for that, and I've worked on Training Day, and I've worked on a bunch of projects with a music supervisor named John Houlihan, who did like John Wick 1 and 2 and Deadpool 1 and 2, and I've just been kind of doing all that since. So, and most of you guys know me not for any of that, but know me from my MetaZoo streaming exploits. I'm a big fan of trading cards, and I found this crazy game called MetaZoo that we all know, and was streaming that from Cryptid Nation First Edition, and just a huge fan, and I became a huge fan of Victor's work, and met all these fine folks here on the stage through kind of that lens. And once Victor left MetaZoo, I reached out and just kind of built a little friendship, and he told me a little bit about what he was doing. And so about 2 years ago, I think now, I was like, yo, whatever you do, like, let's just think about music, and I think Victor was always open to that conversation. And most recently, I think we did the theme song, and that's the first thing you've heard, but we've been kind of talking about this for a couple of years now, and we have some really cool plans to do a whole soundtrack. And Matt Hipp, who is also the composer, he's actually a composer, he'll be helping and along this process. And I think my ideal goal with NomNom, since I have background in animation as well, is once this gets to a really healthy level with the trading card game, is how do we get this to be a really serious animation and animated series, and then really utilize Bryce's skill sets in that sense. So
Awesome, man. Definitely sounds like you had a long path of, definitely sounds like being in the right place at the right time with the right amount of drive to get to where you wanted to go. And I love, the anecdote of not leaving that room, because sometimes the hardest part about being a creator and a high level creator is, how do I get my foot in the door, And it sounds like you got it in there and you did not remove it, and it sounds like it's been quite fruitful for you ever since.
it's had a lot of ups and downs, as anything is after 10 years. But, I'd have my finest days where I'd be in rooms like that. And then the same day I'd watch my car get fucking towed away, because someone put up a construction sign, like, overnight that I didn't see. And so that's a LA thing, like where
Yes.
you just never know what you're going to wake up to. But, you can't have it any other way, if that makes sense.
Having your car blow up is like a major thing in LA. You pretty much have to have a car to get anywhere. So good on you for toughing it out and taking the bus. And man, that's
Pounding the pavement is the core of it,
That's accurate. That's accurate for sure.
But anyway, I'm
Dude,
grateful
you
to be a
did.
part of this, and I'm really excited for this goes, and there's been a lot of in my world and whatnot, and streaming and observing TCGs as they've been, ever since MetaZoo kind of hit the scene. There's been a ton of Kickstarters, but when I found out about this, I didn't get involved in a lot of other things, because I was like, I don't know if this has legs, But this one, I was like, this is extremely exciting. And I think as an intellectual property, and the plan for an intellectual property, comparatively to some of these, like, Magic the Gathering esque things, it feels original, it feels new, it feels fresh, and it feels like it's got scalability.
I agree. And we'll circle back to NomNomverse and like TCGs and stuff. But Tessa, Tessa, my dear friend Tessa, sounds like you've had quite the path to where we are today. It's gonna be hard to follow up Bryce and Hunter,
Yeah,
but
I don't know how to
you,
talk
you
that
kind
long. I
of you
don't.
have an interesting perspective because you kind of were kind of at the end of like a lot of this stuff working for a game store and
Hmm.
kind of seeing firsthand the you know the excitement from like consumers and stuff, but like kind of where did your journey start at, like as you branched into art and streaming and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not very fluent in talking ever, but I will give you guys my best. I come from a very small province called New Brunswick in Canada. No one ever knows what I'm talking about, but that's okay. That's where I'm from. People wear a lot of plaid. That's what I'll say. But so, man, I've always been, a dork, kind of a very introverted. Um, no path that I've ever taken has been as simple as just a straight path. It's always been, I'll go this way, I'll hit a wall, I'll go that way. It's not been a smooth sailing journey for me by any means. I mean, I grew up just wanting to collect dinosaurs. Like, I remember the first room that I actually remember customizing, I made my mom put dinosaur wallpaper. And I was like, my friends were like into Barbies and all that stuff. And it's just like, no, like, give me the new Jurassic Park action figure, right? And along with that was obviously, I grew up in the 90s. That's where Pokemon came out. I was collecting Pokemon cards. I took a lot of inspiration from Pokemon. That's where I really first got into video games, you know, and the whole RPG field of things. And I'll get into that later. But yeah, always been into video games, dinosaurs, cards, like collectibles, and being quiet like me. It's like I needed to find an outlet because I didn't have a whole lot of friends at the time, right? So I would pretty much just doodle all the time. It really became an outlet for someone who's so, I was very socially awkward and stuff, and I just found that like drawing was a way to kind of tell a story without having to actually talk to people. So I've grown a lot since then, though. I love interacting with people now, and obviously I'm part of TCG communities, and I think one of the best parts of that is the people you make, the friends you make along the way. But yeah, that's where I grew up. That's kind of the things I was into as a kid. And then when I grew up and I graduated high school and I was thrown into the working world, it start. I think a lot of us can say that we've worked in fast food. That was probably a lot of our first jobs. So my first job was McDonald's when I was like 15, I think. And then my first real job I worked at, I don't know if you guys are familiar with West 49. It's like a skate shop. And when I was growing up, my brother, he was a huge skateboard guy, and like, being me, already kind of a tomboy with the whole dinosaur thing and the stuff I was into, I was like, man, like I want to learn how to skateboard. So that was one of my other things that I really enjoyed when I was growing up. So the first real job I had was at this skateboard shop, and I think it was the first time I really felt myself stepping outside of being so shy and like introverted and stuff. Was like these people that I worked with gave me the opportunity to feel like I was creative, because you got to wear what you felt you wanted to wear. You didn't have a uniform. Everyone was so like kind, and they were teaching me like how do you work in retail and how do you make it fun. It wasn't just like there wasn't set rules, and it really gave me an opportunity to be creative for the first time, and I felt myself really opening up. And yeah, that was great. And then I actually took a leap year after high school, not a leap year, but a gap year, where I didn't go to university or anything. And then, because I didn't know what I wanted to do, I really didn't know. And I ended up going to university in New Brunswick for criminology initially because I wanted to work with police dogs. Um, yeah,
That sounds about right.
yeah, and I'll segue into what I do now. But yeah, I went for that. I really loved the atmosphere of university, like the people you meet there, and like the whole your first real taste of like freedom and individuality. I feel like that's where I really felt that was when I went to university for the first time, and I didn't do well educational wise. Like that was not where where I excelled. But I did make lifelong friends there, and I found out I really found myself. I think after I left high school, and didn't work out the whole criminology thing. I found myself mostly just like I had a hard time in school. Like I couldn't focus. I mostly just doodled, and it was no different in university. I was like, I had
I'm
my
noticing a pattern here.
yes,
Like
yes,
always doodling.
always doodling, and writing. I got into writing a little bit throughout those years, and then so I only went to university for 1 year, and then after that, I was like, you know what, like something that I've always been passionate about, something that I'll always love, and I know I always will, is animals. And I know, like, because I struggled so much, like with education, I was like, what can I do that's like not so overwhelming? What can I commit myself to? So I found this program. It was a 2-year program for veterinary technician. And if you guys aren't familiar, it's basically like an animal nurse. So it's like doctor adjacent. I can't diagnose or do any of that stuff, but everything else. So yeah, I went to this two-year program, and I actually did really well for the first time ever in education, and it was great because obviously it was something that I truly cared about and was passionate about. Um, and So yeah, I graduated there, and then I ended up moving to Ontario, which is where I live now. And I've worked in clinics and things like that. Not something I enjoyed aspects of it, but I think that there's such it can start to weigh on you a lot, emotionally. Things that you see in clinics, and obviously, not to state the obvious, but it's very clinical to work in a clinic. And like, when you love animals the way that I do, and the way most of us do, you don't want to be the ones that they're afraid to see. So I had my fair share of experience working in clinics. I actually worked with chickens exclusively for about 3 years. I worked for a very, very large company here in Ontario, where I did a little bit of the things that I was trained to do as a vet tech, but I ended up actually on like the back end of things, kind of working on managing the business and stuff like that. And it really taught me the inner workings of what it takes to run a business, and gave me some good skills there that I'm carrying with me throughout my experience with NomNom. But so where I'm at now is as Victor said, there was a pattern for me before where like I always kind of went back to art. I was like, this is my escape. This is the thing that really drives me when I feel like nothing else is. So, I love animals. I actually have my own business now. Not clinical anymore. I just get to take care of people's pets. That's my day job. But I think that the thing that
Chickens.
no chickens. No
You take care of their
chickens.
chick. Oh,
I mean, I will. I'll take care of your chickens if you really want me to. I know pretty much everything about chickens, but yeah, no, animals will always be. I've got all the space in the world in my heart for animals, but I think when it comes down to it, the thing that I really want to become is, an artist. I think I am already, but I think making a name for myself has always been something that I've wanted to do. And it just seems like art is something, like I said, I've always come back to. It's always been such a passion for me. And yeah, and in terms of like how I made my way into this community is actually at the end of my employment with the chicken situation. I found like the Pokemon community initially, and like obviously it was during COVID. No one knew what else to do. They're like, oh man, like do you remember Pokemon cards? Like, and then the whole world blew up with it. It seems. And I jumped on that train, and I was like, this is great. Like when I wanted to collect Pokemon cards, I was a loser and no one wanted to talk to me then, but like sure, let's all collect them now. And so that was great. And it was a good like year and a half, 2 years that I was like very heavy into collecting Pokemon cards. I made a YouTube channel, which, listening to me speak, obviously, it's not my strong suit. It's not I'm not the best at it, but I was like, you know what? Like I need to push myself to get places, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not ever going to get comfortable or get better if I don't try. So I made Pokemon content for a while. After that kind of died out for me, I found the MetaZoo community. But to just backtrack a little bit, when I was like very heavy into collecting Pokemon cards, I started to do a lot of commissions for people, where I had actually just discovered digital art for the first time. So I had a lot of people ask me if I could draw them as like Pokemon trainers and with their favorite Pokemon. And yeah, that was awesome. That's what I was doing for about a year and a half, 2 years. And when I found the MetaZoo community, I kind of fell in love with specifically Victor's art style. I was like, man, like this is so like nostalgic to look at, and it makes me like I want to be able to draw it like that, because he does it in a way where it's like it looks so good, but it also looks so effortless, when in reality like there's so much that goes into a certain composition that people don't realize. And so I started drawing MetaZoo characters and creatures and stuff, and I did do a little bit of content about MetaZoo on my YouTube channel. The YouTube thing, I mean, not saying I won't go back to it, but I think that my real passion just lies in art. Bottom line is, I think that my whole life has been little hints of it, and then I've made my way to where I'm at now, and it's like I'm now given an opportunity where I have someone who's willing to take what I've done so far and just evolve it with me. And obviously Victor, that's
A young Padawan.
yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to be great at something. I feel like something I've struggled with a lot in my life is like, I like to skateboard. I'm not very good at it. I like to do I played hockey for a lot of years. I wasn't the best at hockey either, and I just feel like I'm really ready to push myself to be great at something. And I think that I've found myself in the proper, environment to do that, with the proper people around me, Johnny, Victor, Bryce, Hunter, everybody. Like a loser among losers, in the like
Whoa,
in a
wait.
good way.
Whoa.
You're gonna have to teach me how to draw, and I'll teach you how to scream.
Yes.
It'll be a good trade,
Yes.
That's a good trade-off.
because I'm terrible at drawing. I can draw stick figures poorly.
But I mean, like,
We need to get Bryce to illustrate a card at some point.
Oh no, no one would want that card. No one would want it.
Serialized top 10.
I already know plenty of people would want that card.
Oh yeah.
it's just so
Wait, I have
it's
to say Tessa is the hardest working person on NomNom. Like she's all over the place. So
oh, I don't know about that.
no, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, you are the
She
glue.
definitely does a good job of keeping me and Johnny's head on straight. So
Yeah, and
I'm impartial to agree with you.
I just think like looking at the beginning of my story and like growing up and how I felt about myself and my surroundings and the things that I was interested in, to now be in a place where all of that is like celebrated. It's you're collecting cards, awesome. You're drawing these characters, cool. You're watching anime, you're like doing all this stuff, and it's like it's what people like. I don't know. It's just great. It gives me goosebumps. It gives me the goosies.
Me too, Tessa.
Yeah.
Well, that's lovely, and it definitely seems like, quite the journey, definitely feels like it could have gone a bunch of different ways for you, from criminology to being a vet. Like, I can definitely see why that was part, because you do love animals.
Mm-hmm.
But glad to have you on the team, Tessa, and you do go above and beyond all the time for us, and not only that, but your art skills have grown immensely. But it wasn't just Tessa approaching me when I left MetaZoo. Johnny, you also approached me, and I'm super glad you did, because it's pretty much been all she wrote after that. But Johnny, you came on as a writer originally, but I know you are a multifaceted man, and you've kind of had quite the journey to be where you are right now too, from your gaming background to your podcast, your YouTube background, and it sounds like you've even dabbled a little bit in the trenches of LA and music industry and stuff. So why don't you take us through a little bit of a slice of Johnny?
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm just a guy, and I've done a lot of different jobs. I've lived many lives at this point. I feel like I'm a Mark Twain character or something sometimes, because like if you look at my life in like 5-year chunks, every 5-year chunk is like drastically different
Mm-hmm.
from the following or previous 5-year chapter. And I grew up in Pennsylvania near Hershey, where all the chocolate is made. A little town called Lebanon, but everybody thinks I'm saying Lebanon, and that always makes confusion. So I just stick to Hershey at this point. And it was like a small town, farming town. Kind of your classic Americana small town, I would say, where there's not a lot of really big opportunities. You just kind of you go to school, you're encouraged to figure out a career, go to college, and get into the workforce. It's the East Coast metropolis life. That's just kind of how things go there. A lot of my friends are still over there working warehouse jobs and office jobs, and shout out to those guys for being able to hold that down, because I could not. I just couldn't do it, man. And I always wanted to be able to make money creatively. That was the pursuit. And when I was growing up, I really wanted to be a musician. That was my first real addiction. There's pictures of me setting up pots and pans in my house and playing them with spatulas and stuff when I was like 2. I was obsessed with drums. And my family was very broke. So they bought me a drum set one year that was called, I'll never forget this thing, it was called Little Thunder, and it was like a kid's drum kit. And I came down at Christmas and I saw it, and I was so excited, and I sat down and I grabbed the sticks and I hit the kick drum, and the kick drum pedal went through the kick drum head, and I drummed on the snare and I broke the snare, and it was like I was a monster. I was like, what have I done? And it was really just that it was a kid's set and I was trying to play it like a real drum kit. But a local guy heard about that and donated a drum kit to me. It was a 1953 Ludwig Swingerland drum kit. It's probably worth like $5,000. I had no idea. So like the day it showed up, I pulled out acrylic paint and painted it green, like on top of like pearlescent marble. Like this thing was beautiful, and I just like ruined it day one because I wanted to put a green stripe on everything. It was disgusting. But I played this thing, and basically whenever teachers were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was like, shove it, I'm going to be a drummer. And they're like, are you going to college? I was like, nope. They're like, why are you in AP classes? I was like, because I like the girls. And I was just like the worst like student. And it was kind of that thing where teachers were like, dude, if you just tried and applied yourself, like you could do anything. And I was like, yeah, well, I'm going to be a musician. And so the day I graduated high school, I packed up all my bags and left home. And that was a big deal because my father had passed away recently from cancer. Rest in peace, man. Love that man. Amazing dude. And he passed away. My mom was in the house alone with me for my last 2 years of high school. And that was really intense for both of us. It was a good bonding experience for us. You know, like my mom and I have always been really tight since then. But I was telling her, you know, from day one was like, I'm leaving as soon as I can, Mom. Like I love you. It's nothing personal, but I got to get out of here. And I actually tried to leave like right after my dad passed in 10th grade. And my mom was like, please don't. For me, like, please just finish school and then you can go do whatever you want. And so, yeah, the day I graduated, I was like, guess what, Mom? Deal's on. Like, I finished school. Here's the diploma, packed up my bags, and I took off. And she also left. We sold the house and she moved on. So that chapter was like over. And I drove out to Venice Beach on Route 66, drove down across on the 40 and stuff. And that was like a fever dream. I don't know if I really slept. I made it out in 56 hours, which is really fast if you're just driving a line across the country. And I showed up at my brother's place. You guys know Cracks, Jesse. He's done the content with me. And anyway, I showed up and his girlfriend was like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I'm here. Like, Jesse told me to come out to live here." And she's like, "He didn't tell me." I was like, "Oh." He's like, "So you can't stay here." I was like, "All right. I don't have anywhere else to stay though. Like, I just literally drove across the country. I'm like totally out of it right now." You know, like I thought I was going to get here and crash on a couch. And it was like, no, I mean, you can take a nap on the couch, but then you got to get out of here. And so,
So nice of him, you know.
yeah. So my brother was like, "Oh, well, what if he didn't live in the house?" And he kind of gave me a look, and I like looked at his girlfriend. I was like, "Yeah, what if I lived outside the house?" And she's like, "I don't know. Like, what are you talking about?" And we went to Home Depot, and I bought cement blocks and canvas, and I built a hut in her backyard. And thinking this was like a fair compromise. Totally not, like, totally not fair. Just a 17-year-old kid showing up and taking over your yard. And I lived out there in Santa Monica, which is a really beautiful area, and I pursued music for a while. And long story short, I won't go down that whole rabbit hole, but it's really tough. Like Hunter said, it's very tough. You really have to like go above and beyond all the time, and even then, there's no guarantee that it's going to work out or lead to anything. You might just end up with no place to stay, out of money, and going, dang, man, all right, I guess those shows didn't really add up to anything. And so I was in several bands, and before it kind of hit me, like, this is going a direction, but I don't necessarily like the direction this is going. Like, I can see that I'm getting my foot in the door here, but it's not the door that I wanted to go into. It wasn't really the music that I wanted to make. Most of the bands I was in, because I'm a pretty skilled drummer, so most of the bands I was in were really older guys who wanted to play like older stuff, which was cool, but I wanted to play new stuff and write new music. I was really on that fiery like teenage ambition kick, you know? So I left those bands, and I ended up getting a job as a farmer. So big flip, big switch. I pretty much did the opposite of playing music, and I ran a farm in Northern California for a while. A couple different farms actually.
What kind of stuff were you guys producing?
All kinds of stuff, man. You know, vegetables, fruit, animal raising, and animal husbandry, and stuff like that. I helped some people with their legal cannabis grows, which felt really cool. And it was a good like way for me to step back from the like insane constant pursuit of the music thing, and kind of just get to know myself better in a different way. Because I think sometimes when you really commit to those ambitions, you kind of overwrite a lot of your personality as it's blooming. Like, as you're starting to figure out who you are, you're also like, no, stay focused, stay on this track, you know. And getting into farming really helped me like branch out. And to tie this to the nerdy stuff, I had always been like the biggest nerd. Like, you could read me the flavor text from a Magic card, and I'd be like, "Oh, that's murder," or "Oh, that's Obnixilis," or "Oh, that's." I knew like every card just based on the flavor text. I had like every Magic card memorized, and the new set would come out, and I would just like memorize it immediately. And so I was always the friend that like all my friends were asking gaming questions about. Like, that was just naturally my role, was like, "Hey man," I'd get calls. I still get calls from my friends that are like, "Hey dude, I'm playing Final Fantasy 3." And I'm like, "Right. Do you mean Final Fantasy 3 or Final Fantasy 6?" And they're like, "I don't know." I'm like, "You probably mean Final Fantasy 6." He's like, "Yeah, I guess. But I'm in this cave and I can't figure out what to do." And I'm like, right. You're in the waterfall cave. You're looking for the scuba suits that you can drop down into the river and go find Ga." And like, I know the whole game. Like, I know where treasure chests are. It's disgusting. I don't know why my brain obsesses with this stuff, but it always has. And so it was only natural that like more and more I became kind of like the teacher to my friends for games. Like, "Oh, you want to learn how to play Magic? You want to learn how to play Pokemon? You want to learn how to play Legend of the Five Rings," or whatever, the game was. I was kind of that guy. And so while I was farming, that was my main pastime, was like invite my friends over, welcome to the Magic room. And it was just like covered in Magic cards. And it was like, let's all build decks and play. And my brother and I specifically got really, really hooked on that, playing those games together. And we wanted to try to make content with us playing games, but we didn't really want to get into Magic just because there were so many people doing Magic content already. And like, what was I going to bring to the table that, that was new for them? But when we found some of these indie games, and specifically MetaZoo, and I saw it was Victor's art was the first thing I saw. It was Jersey Devil, and I was like, this is cool. And my brother was like, "Yeah, I don't know, it's an indie game. It looks pretty cool." And I was like, "It looks really cool though, and I think maybe we should try this game for content." And so we did. We got some, starter decks and things to get going. We'd actually recorded some episodes with us playing Pokemon also, but it was just like so boring because we didn't have a lot of good cards at the time in Pokemon. We had way more good Magic cards, and so like the decks were not exciting, and it was basically just your standard like Pikachu deck, and then verse like a Squirtle deck. It was just like not exciting gameplay, starter Pokemon gameplay. So when we got into doing the MetaZoo stuff and we started doing content, we decided to get really committed to it because I was working the farm all day, but then at night I was chilling, and so we would record an episode and really didn't know where it was going to go. Had no idea that we were going to end up like being the guys that like taught so many people to play. I mean, I cannot tell you how much it means to me every time somebody reaches out and is like, "Yo, you're the reason I played the game. You're the reason I got into it. It was so fun watching your videos. You explain things well, etc." Like, that stuff just inflates my ego in the worst way, but also I love it. And like, thank you, because it's amazing to like see people having fun and understanding something. I look for that moment when you see their brains click and they get an exciting idea and then they like play it out. That makes it all worth it to me. And so, yeah, we did these videos for a while and we built up a following. We actually got some sponsors. It was insane the day we got a call from Channel Fireball. Like, it was like a joke. Like, I did not believe it. I don't even know how they got my number. And it was like, "Hey, you're Johnny, right? And we're Channel Fireball." And already I was like, because I'm the Magic kid, so I know exactly what that means. That's like they're like one of the biggest TCG content creators out there, especially at the time. Things have kind of died off a little since then, but at the time they were huge. And so we started doing content for them, and getting a paycheck doing content for us was like, we're getting there, man. Like, we're making this happen. And we picked up some other sponsors, and there was a time where things were going really smoothly with Metabros. We were committed to full time. We were getting sponsorship, and my brother and I are so good at living poor because we're so used to it. So like, we can live on like a shoestring budget, and so that's what we were doing. And it just kind of turned into this whole community and brand and thing that oh, hi Bunny, this is my dog, by the way.
I would like to talk. I would like to say something.
She wants to say something. She showed up at the farm, but yeah, we did the content, and with the MetaZoo thing, we all kind of know how that arc went. Kind of went something like this, you know. So towards the end of things, my brother and I kind of had like a big discussion that was like, look, we are promoting this thing. Like people look to us, and a lot of people get into it because of us. And so we just kind of thought like, what could we do for people? You know, what me specifically, like what could I do? Like what's the next step at this point? If the sponsors are done with, you know, previous games and stuff, because that's what happened. Sponsors moved on from that game, and it was like, what do we do? You know, and it was around this time when my brother and I were having these discussions that I bumped into Victor, and it was at Orlando Collecticon, and I remember seeing him, and he had a huge line of people signing, and I was like, first of all, like, I don't want to wait in this entire line just to get up there and be like, hey man, do you want a writer? And like, because I also always have helped my friends with writing. That's just being that kind of wordy word head. I really like helping people like develop stuff and build out their worlds. You know, my friends would be like, dude, I got this idea for like, he's like a character and he has like a magical ability. And I'm the guy who's like, right, but like, how does that magical ability work? Is it that his metabolism is speeding up and he's getting like stronger? And then does he need to eat more to balance that out? Or he's going to run out of energy? And like, I'm that kind of guy that like wants to bring physics into it and like figure out how we can stretch the rules and like make things work. I think, you know, Marvel does an excellent job with that, with like their mutants and X-Men and things. The way they explain all the powers and how they manifest, it's so cool. And I had seen Victor's art, and I'd seen that he was starting to work on this NomNom thing, and I was like, I gotta talk to this guy. So I missed I think I did actually see you at Collecticon. I got you to sign a couple cards, but we didn't have a conversation then. I just did the standard, like, dude, you're awesome. Thank you for signing my, you know, Nightfall Mothman or whatever. And then
I remember
like,
talking to you like on Instagram, and then I remember seeing you and walking up to you and knowing it was you just because of your face and your long hair at the time. But I do remember like thinking to myself like, whoa, this guy's a lot taller than I thought he was.
Yeah.
And I guess you get that a lot. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, it was cool. You did come up to me, and that made me feel really special because I saw you walking around. You had just gotten a break from the signing, and I was just going to pass you and be like, hey dude, and you were like, hey, Moldy, right? And then we like chatted a bit, and I mentioned to you that I was into the writing stuff and that I would send you a sample, and I did. I sent you some samples of my writing, and you know, next thing I knew, we were starting to meet up just for fun, like kind of casual meetings to just be like, what is NomNom? What do you have? You know, let's lay it all out. And honestly, guys, the amount that he has is insane. Like, he's got like, it's like a whole library. It's like in Avatar, the library is guarded by the owl spirit that's just like full of all this amazing history and like lost stories and stuff. That's what it feels like when I started to drag this stuff out of Victor, and I realized like I don't need to even add much, really. Like, I just have to tease this out because there's already so much here, and then once we get it all out, we can like look at it and see what we got. And as we did that process over a few months, we got so much cool so many cool ideas and plots and stories, and he already had a lot put together, and then I could kind of get in there and just kind of help fit a couple pieces in together a little more tightly and things like that. And we were headed in a direction with NomNom for a while where we were going to approach a little bit more of like a digital approach to NomNom. It was still going to be a game, but there was going to be more of like, what do we want to call them? Like assets, digital assets and things like that, where you could like trade items and trade things like that. And as we were going down that rabbit hole, we were just kind of realizing like, this is a big investment of time. It also is investment of money, and there's teams involved in this, programming teams and things like that, where things could really all of a sudden get magically expensive. You could just feel it. And we had a team meeting that was like, what do we want to do moving forward? And kind of what we agreed on is like, why don't we just take a deep breath and simplify this and just focus on making a really good tabletop game. Like, let's drop the other stuff that we're talking about right now, and let's focus on how do we give TCG players something new, like a new experience, a new tabletop experience, and board game players, and kind of bring these gamers together. And that's what led us onto this NomNom project. And like Victor said, from the moment we got started, it was kind of like, well, that's all she wrote, man. It was so easy. Like, we just clicked so well creatively because Victor and I have very similar influences, you know. And you know, you bring in somebody like a doctor adjacent chicken specialist, and then we can really get a lot done. I had to crack that joke. But yeah, it's been really cool. And like I said, any 5, you know, I could go on forever about all the weird things I've done in my life. I worked as a chef as well, made pizza for like 10 years out of a truck. And it was, you know, I've got all kinds of weird life experiences, but to stay a little focused here, that's kind of the line that led me into NomNom and got us where we're at, you know, the team right now. And to have all this kind of work, this legitimately intense work and creative stuff lead up to a Kickstarter that goes 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 within a few days was like surreal. that was seriously surreal. I think we can all agree on that. The whole team was just like, I guess it's working. Like, people are following us, and this is so cool because we do have so much to bring. You know, we're only just getting started here, guys. You haven't even scratched the surface of what NomNom is.
Yeah, it was so funny too, because when we first initially launched the Kickstarter landing page, like, all 3 of us kind of had a different reaction. I was trying to get Johnny to like do a cheer pose so I could get a screenshot, and he was like, I can't cheer. I can't do it. I'm like, I don't know how to feel. Like, it was, and then Victor was just like, his mind was blowing. Like, it was crazy. And yeah, we're super excited to see how far this thing can go. I really think that we've got so much ahead of us, and I mean, our community is just unreal. It's been a wild ride.
But let me say that before we get into that,
yes,
Victor, the builder, we need to hear, where did NomNom begin? Why is it called NomNom? Who are you? Let's get this going.
Who am I? Sure you want to know? My story isn't for the faint of heart. Did I just compare myself to Spider-Man? Yes, I did. Actually, that's actually a great starting point. It was Spider-Man. At the age of 4, I must have reached that age that my dad was just like, "Yep, he's old enough now. Let's show him the comic book collection." So my dad had been collecting comic books, you know, since the 80s and stuff, and it's something my dad's always been truly passionate. Where my imagination and my interest really come from him, because he was. I remember being, you know, I kind of come from a poor family too. So anytime we were going anywhere, it was never flying. It was always driving, and it kind of started in those long car rides with my dad, because my dad would spin us yarns, not his own yarn, but, you know, like, have you ever seen the Highlander? It's like, no, Dad, I haven't seen the Highlander. And by the end of the trip, my dad's pretty much told us the whole Highlander story from his perspective. And that happened a lot, you know. And I always give my dad kind of crap for it, because, like, I'll give him, like, a movie, you know, reference, like, you know, Dad, you should watch this, you know, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth, and it's just like, and then my dad will be like, "Oh, you never listen to me." It's like, excuse me? like I am me because of you. But yeah, it was at a very young age that I was shown comic books, and I just fell in love with art. Spider-Man, you know, that was like the first comic book I ever saw was Spider-Man 300. it's also the comic book my dad's most proud about. So seeing that one first makes sense. But yeah, I just grew up from there, and I remember I started to draw more and more, and family members picked up on that. So next thing you know, people are buying me how to draw books and stuff, and then the anime craze of the 90s, when Toonami picked up Dragon Ball Z, and Yu Yu Hakusho and Pokemon and Digimon. I mean, I was exposed to all of that, similar to you guys back in the 90s, but I fell in love with the style of everything. And I remember drawing Goku hundreds of times, like hundreds. And um, when my grandma passed away, my auntie Deb gave me a stack of stuff that I apparently gifted to my grandma over time. And there's this drawing, this exact drawing of Goku from when I was 8, and it was the same Goku drawing every single time. Like, I didn't get creative with it. It was always just like a Goku like this, like charging a blast or shooting the blast, and I'd draw it over and over and over and over. And then yeah, my grandma apparently got one of these for her birthday, and I've been meaning to dig it out and show everybody, like, hey, I wasn't always good at art either, But, skip ahead, over the next couple decades, grow up, go through high school, typical high school teenager, got into sports, liked hanging out with friends. But I never gave up drawing. Drawing was always there. And when we're asked what we want to be when we grow up, when we're kids, we always give those outrageous answers. I want to be a princess. I want to be a hockey player. I want to be an astronaut. My my dream jobs was I wanted to be a boxer, or I wanted to be an artist. So I was right there with you, Bryce. I was put into Kempo karate at a young age, like 6 or 7, and I pretty much did martial arts all the way up until out of high school, when I did boxing and stuff. So martial arts and self-discipline has always been something I've been truly passionate about. But I was also passionate about art, and I never really dropped it. I'd pick it up, put it down, pick it up, put it down. But at any given point during my high school years, you could walk into my bedroom, and my wall just had a bunch of drawings I did pinned to it. So it was always something I was truly passionate about. But if you've ever wanted to be an artist, there's some very common things that are usually thrown at you, like, how much does that pay? Ooh, like, are you sure? So it's not something, when you want to be a creator, it's not something that comes naturally to a lot of people to support, And so, having that mindset of like, yeah, it's not gonna put food on the table, I never pursued it seriously. It was always a very passionate hobby. But now I'm graduated from high school, and life kind of hits you real quick. It's like, do I join the military? Do I go to college? And do I, just get a job right away? Fortunately for me, I did all three of those things, but the military didn't quite work out for me, as I was kind of too much of a troublemaker in high school. We won't get into that, but yeah. So it was just like I actually became a cable guy after high school, and like Johnny said, I could get into every job I worked, but it'd be easier to tell you guys the things I haven't done. But so I'm going through my 20s, and I'm working in construction at this time. I've gone to school, and it was actually a boss of mine, auto body. When I worked in auto body, yep, I worked in auto body. My boss could just tell I was miserable, I'm working on collectible cars, and the $70,000 trucks, and you kind of gotta at least enjoy what you're doing when you're working on, expensive stuff. Don't worry, I didn't like ruin a $70,000, classic or anything, but he could just tell with the way I carried myself that he was just like, you're not happy in this. So he kind of shit canned me in the most positive way you can shit can somebody, but he asked some of the questions I hadn't been asked since I was a kid. It's like, what do you want to be, Vic? What are you good at? What are you passionate about? And there was only one thing I could think of that didn't involve getting my face beat in a ring. So, it was art. It was always art. It's the one thing I know I'm good at. It's like the one thing I'm truly passionate about. And I've always been super passionate about world building and different universes and stuff, from, you know, uh, Lords of the Ring to Star Wars, Harry Potter. I love seeing what makes a good story tick, and how people respond to it. Understanding the structure of a story. So I always knew I wanted to build a world that people wanted to be a part of, that, people were entranced with, that people wrote fan fiction for because they're so into it. That was what I wanted to do. And so I pretty much, I left auto body. I believe I went to school. I went to school for fine arts and literature. Two things, wrapped up into one. Hindsight is 2020. I should have went for marketing or business or advertising because I already knew how to draw. So, and write, it was something that I was passionate about most of my life. So, not that my tools were, the sharpest they can be, but I just felt what I went to school for should have been something else to aid me in those things. So school went over nicely, and it's like Tessa said, you you get like a new sense for a new outlook on education and stuff when you're kind of going for yourself. Um, I actually um, the thing I probably took the most away from college was the anime club. I was the president of the anime club, which at the technical college I went to was the largest club on campus. Um, because of me, I don't know, but I put a lot into it. I met a lot of cool people. It's where I learned to like talk in front of people, how to kind of lead. Um, and when you got 50 antisocial, anime weebs, Bryce, I'm sure you know how this goes. It's like interacting with that audience is was a challenge because you put a lot out there but you don't get a lot back, but it gave me the skills to kind of think on the fly and how to communicate with people, and so that was kind of what I was like super excited about college for, was the skills I pulled from that. But just to pick up the pace a little bit, skip ahead. I'm working in road construction. Yep, I worked in road construction. And I'm miserable. Like I'm literally working 70-hour weeks in a job I don't really like doing, and it's you kind of think to yourself, like, why am I doing this? If I had a wife and kids at home, it would have been different, but I didn't. It was just me, like single bachelor working himself into an early grave, and so it was like kind of, I came full circle. I kind of chased the dreams, and then like the real life was kind of dragging me back, and so I kind of had to make a decision right there and then. It was just like, either I do art or I keep working a dead end job and do art part-time, and maybe I make it when I'm 60, which is like a thought I was always comfortable with. Like Morgan Freeman didn't start acting until, his 50s or whatever. So it's like I just had this positive outlook on my future, And I told myself, this was about 24, 25. I was like, if this doesn't work out, I can always just get another dead end job, Like I got quite the resume. I can get a job anywhere. But so I quit. I quit construction, up and left it, and I started to draw like all the time. I started to try to get commissions and, just, working on more of my own stuff and just seeing if people vibed with it. And, I'm sure all of us have social medias, and building social medias is something I had to learn how to do and stuff. But it was fun. It was great. I was happy for the first time in a long time. It felt like, because life, can really, move quite fast and, not quite go as you planned it to. So, but I'm happy. And I was working part-time at a Michael's, so I had 30% discount on art supplies. I thought I was pretty smart for getting a part-time job there. I got a part-time job at an LA Fitness to keep myself in shape, because being an artist is a lot of sitting around. So yeah, I'm just pushing myself, just putting myself out there and trying to sharpen those tools. And eventually, it all started to pay off. I started to get the followers I needed to actually, cultivate an audience, and um, this is kind of around the time I started the world of NomNom. I started a Patreon where you could interact with the world through my Patreon, and I did sketch cards and stickers and, all that, rudimentary entry level artist stuff. And, but yeah, I was starting to build out this world, and, and then MetaZoo came along. I won't get too into MetaZoo, but, obviously I pushed everything to the back burner. But to me, it was like, hey, I made it. And, I kind of put all my eggs into that basket, it was like, it was just good enough for me to make a living off of. So, I kind of buckled down and I really put, my blood, sweat, and tears in the MetaZoo, and it all paid off for a while. And, it no longer felt like the right path, Um, and Bryce, it was actually during our second convention ever that I met you for the first time. Do you remember?
I think it was in Minnesota. Is that right?
It was in the Midwest. It was in Illinois, Indiana. It was in Indiana PopCon.
Oh, we met. Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. We met way before we actually got to hang out and just chat. Okay.
Yeah, there's kind of two official meetings, but I actually met Bryce at our second ever MetaZoo convention, and I remember it was when I was really all about it, and I just remember taking promo packs and handing them out to all the voice actors towards the end of the day when you guys didn't have your long lines. And that's when I met Bryce, and I got to meet Bryce, and I remember trying to talk to you about what if there's a MetaZoo anime and stuff, and that was great. And yeah, that's when I got to meet you, Bryce, and you receive your fans and your community so well. Honestly, I took some notes from
seriously,
you.
Wait, I have to say, I tried to visit Bryce in LA at LA Comic-Con, and I was going to say hi to you. And I was like, oh no, there's no fucking way, because there was just so many people in line waiting for you, dude. I was just like, well, maybe I'll see him another time. But yeah.
It's the coolest thing ever, by the way. The coolest thing ever.
And it's so well deserved for you, Bryce. But I did take some notes. I always knew, I was never into any of this for the fame and fortune or anything like that. I wanted to put my name on the map. But one thing you kind of showed me that it is important to give back to your fans, and literally I know how tiring conventions can be, but that does not deter Bryce from greeting every individual with a big smile and a big Bryce yell, every single person, dude. And to be honest, I, I wanted to present myself like you, it's just because people do deserve that, but just a little bit about when I met Bryce and stuff. But skip ahead. MetaZoo wasn't right for me, and but I had met all these awesome people that you guys see on stage now, and I was a little scared. I left MetaZoo quite confidently in myself that I was making the right choice, but it was what do I do now? And it wasn't long. It didn't take me a long time to answer that question. It was like, I'm going to take NomNom off the back burner. The world of NomNom, people need it. I feel like, this world needs to be explored. And I had already done so much like creative building with it that I was just like, I'll just pick up right where I left off. So I did, and that's when Tessa and Johnny approached me, and it was a slow grind from there. But skip ahead to St. Patty's Day again, Bryce, and I actually had met
I'm thinking
and
of.
became friends with some some acquaintances of both me and Bryce's, and your event coordinator, Jeremy, needed a guitar. So like, it's just like, yeah, I think I can help you out, man. And so I bring the guitar up, and this is when the convention was in Minneapolis.
Minnesota.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I head out. It's St. Patty's Day, guys. I head out to hand off this guitar to Jeremy, and I don't think I knew he was chilling with you, but shortly after arriving there, you and him are sitting over on the wall and stuff, and it's just like, oh shit, that's Bryce, man. And yeah, you guys kind of invited me to have a beer, and skip ahead like 2 hours later, I had kind of given you my whole spiel on uh on Nom Nom, and you were kind of really receptive, which I appreciate, dude. You kind of it feels good to have someone of your caliber kind of like listen to your idea. It's kind of like you get a good feeling like, oh man, this is a good idea. So I appreciate you receiving me that night, but it was cool because like I got to tell you all about Ralph and all about the project, and though it's evolved quite a bit, because you knew about it still when it was going to be that digital element,
Yeah.
and then it slowly
Yes.
transitioned into the tabletop, and you were still on board, you still had faith in us and stuff, and but yeah, I just remember telling you about Ralph, and I feel like we both kind of looked at each other, and it was just like, this is your wheelhouse, man.
I
And
mean, you started with chainsaw sword, and I was like, yeah, you got my attention here.
but so
Heard a
yeah,
lot
there
of
was,
ideas, and Nom Nom just stood out. The building that you had done before you talked to me, I could tell a lot went into it, and I could see the potential right away.
yeah, dude, and it was definitely a momentum factor for me. I remember going back to the team and just being like, yo, Bryce is into this, man. Like, we gotta have something here. So it was like a big, momentum factor that just drove us even more and stuff. And yeah, skip ahead to now, and all the work that me, Johnny, and Tessa have put into it, Bryce, Hunter, all the consultations you guys have given us, we've come a long way. But yeah, Nom Nom, I think, is here to stay, and this is just the beginning, guys. Like Johnny said, we barely scratched the surface. It looks like Hunter's got his package. Bryce, you might have yours if you have access to it. Yeah.
I don't get it yet. I was hoping I'd have it by the time we met, but I don't have it in hand. I'm looking
I
forward.
I just checked the mail and was like I went off camera to be like, maybe it showed up, and it was in there, and I was like, fuck yeah, dude.
Nice.
But yeah, so to answer the original question, what is Nom Nom? Nom Nom it's a world. It's like a world of worlds. It's a multiverse wrapped up into one chaotic, neat package. It's a world that exists between dimensions and universes where, if you can think it, it can be. It's where imagination goes to play. In its most simplest terms. Obviously, me and Johnny have been structuring out a generational story, in my opinion, that could span in real life time over the next couple generations. And but yeah, it was kind of a place I wanted to create that harbored all my ideas, because I was all over the place. I like kaiju, I like anime, I like gunslingers are cool. What about samurai, dinosaurs, everybody loves dinosaurs, and I felt like some of these things aren't really catered to, like, either. So I was like, I wanted it to be a big part of it, such as kaiju and dinosaurs. Yeah, Godzilla is big and bigger than he's ever been for quite some time. He's huge right now. But I felt like dinosaurs, like, there's plenty of dinosaur stuff out there, but the only people really, killing it is like Jurassic Park. Why aren't there more dinosaur movies and dinosaur games and kaiju stuff? And so I was like, NomNom needs to have all this stuff, not just because I like it, because obviously there's a huge fan base here that's not being catered to, which is one of the things I think did so well for MetaZoo is like cryptids are awesome and, they were finally being catered to. But with NomNom, I feel like we can incorporate anything. Any story can be told. Romances, horrors, there's something to offer in NomNom for everybody. And nobody has to be left out of NomNom either, whether you're a beginning level artist or, super artist, like come play in NomNom, Um, and I guess the NomNom verse, is the TCRPG that we developed from it, but the IP is so strong that I feel like when me and Bryce started talking and me and Hunter, like it's like music and anime talk, do I need a voice actor for this? It's like, no, we're making a card game. We don't need music, we don't need voice actors. But honestly, if you guys see the perception and the distance of something like this, then let's show them that, and like, and I feel like up to this point we've done an amazing job with the resources allotted to us, but we've barely scratched the surface. So it's like I think it's about to become an even bigger playground.
And every element you add starts to bring it to life even more. You get different things start to show. When I heard the song that you made, it all started to pull it all together even closer. I thought it was so cool. I thought, what we had come up with for Ralph's voice just matched the look of the character and matched that song so well. It just all blended and it really came to life for me when all of that kind of touched.
It's honestly amazing. Like you said, it's all coming together, and like I hear Hunter's song, and like I can close my eyes and picture Ralph parkouring through the city, slashing through monsters with your voice attached. It's just like, I don't even need you guys there anymore. It's there, It's like I can hear Bryce's Ralph, and I can hear Hunter's, scoring of like the whole project, and he's working on more, y'all, just so you know. But keep that tight lip for now. But yeah, and then just Johnny's writing and his ability to kind of pick my brain and add to it is beautiful. And then Tessa, her growth as well in the project, it's just like it'd be hard not to bring this to its peak, like it's like the lightest boulder ever, and we're pushing it up the hill right now.
I had the fortune of hearing Bryce's like first recordings, like the whole session is recorded, so it was like all the kind of back and forth about like the choices that you were making and just kind of like, and it just sounded like such a fun session to be a part of. So, and then the newest one too, with the voiceover for the disclaimer and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was kind of cool because it was like I was almost in the room or something, It was like me hanging out with my buddies, but I was by myself. It's fine, no big deal.
Yeah, I got to give you guys both credit. It's really like Vic said. There's a certain kind of magic when someone outside of the core, like original creation team brings something that fits the world that well. It's like they saw something that I wasn't seeing. Not that it's like something that I couldn't see, but I don't have Hunter's, abilities when it comes to the music stuff. Throw me on a drum set, I'll crush it. But tell me to get musicians together.
Bullshit, and we're gonna put that to the test, Johnny, because I know you got the skills to pay the bills, dude.
Fair enough, but I'm busy complimenting you right now because you have to, like, that theme is so good. Like Victor said, it brought more of the world to life for me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I already thought I had the world in my head in full color and was already immersed. And then when that theme shows up, it's like it adds so much more to it. It's like it brings it into high def or something. And then sitting with Bryce, and Bryce, you're such a pro. I mean, obviously, that's redundant to say, but it's crazy to see you work and how much you care about your work. And like you said, I can tell you want to feel what the character's feeling. It's not a cold calculated formula on a piece of paper where you're like, right. Okay, this is what I'm doing. You really get into it, and you let yourself kind of swing for the fences a little bit, and then you'll dial it back, and the way you refine it and found your way into like Ralph, it's so cool to watch. And again, it just brings more to the world and gets me even more inspired to dive in and write. Because like Vic said, now when I write Ralph's lines, when Vic and I are planning out little things for future projects like the comic book or something, and I write Ralph lines, and it's like I hear you, and I'm like, does that sound like something Ralph would say? And I can like play it through in your tone, and I'm like, yeah, that's Ralph, and it's just it's an honor to work with guys that have this much to bring to the table.
Hey,
And thank you guys for letting me bring that voice to this character. That's what I love to do. And like I was saying, I've heard a lot of ideas. Many people come up with these stories or these things that have a lot of potential. But it's one thing to kind of talk about it, and another thing to go and put the work in and create all of this and spend so much time working on all of the nuance and detail. Like that is very rare and very unique. And it's exciting to be connected to it.
Bryce, would you be comfortable giving anyone who may not have heard Ralph's voice yet a little snippet?
Wow, you got to give me a little script. Do we have a line? Do I have a script that I can
Johnny,
play off
How
of?
about you? How about you do the catchphrase, man? The nom nom
NomNom is waiting. Are you ready? Press start. Little
and there's Ralph.
inspired by his
Yeah.
sword. This little.
He's so good that his video froze.
I broke the camera. Got afraid of Ralph.
He's pretty intimidating.
That was perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, nice. Goosies. Goosies.
See, I'm script. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. Ready for more Ralph.
Oh man, it's right around the corner, man. I do know that I can comfortably say over the next 2 years, we are going to be focusing on establishing the TCRPG and getting it to a very, very self-sustaining level. But over this next 2 years, me and Johnny are going to be doing quite a bit of side work on the story and the storyboarding and all of that. And there's even some other conversations happening with Hunter and some of his associates. I don't want to say any names or brands here, but yeah, I mean, it's like we have all the pieces, guys. It's just a matter of execution and how receptive everybody is. But so far, 305K on the Kickstarter so far, and we're only a little bit over a week in. Hopefully, everybody that's tuned in, thank you, but also hopefully this provides a little bit more hype for that Kickstarter. The more we get, the more we can do, and if we hit that 500K mark, guys, you're gonna get to see it. Excuse me, you get to see that the taste of the animation a little bit more.
I'll say too. I want
Yeah.
to say here because it's important. That animation is essentially a proof of concept executed for pitching to like a studio for an animation. So it's not solely just a fun project to work on. It's also going to be used later to get
Yes.
get more attention in that realm. So the more that
Yeah.
we can do, like Victor said, to make that happen, the cooler it can look, the better the animation company, and some of that other stuff, musically and all that.
Yeah, and that's totally, man. And that's one of the reasons that we set it as one of the really high goals. We put it up there at the 500K because we don't want to do it like half, we don't want to half-ass it. We want to whole-ass it. We want to like make this thing, I had to get that quote in there. We want to make this thing really awesome though. And so if we get up to 500K, yeah, it's like we set that number because we want to reach out to a top tier animation studio, somebody who has experience working in anime and making the looks and the movement that we want. Anybody who watches anime, they're not all created equal. And some animes will like focus their budget, and it'll be basically like characters talking and moving, or like a frame and the background kind of moving, but then they'll get to the part where they spent the budget and it's like an insane fight scene with like, like these mad transitions with characters spinning and all this kinds of stuff. Shout out to Ninja Kamui, by the way. I don't know if you guys have seen Ninja Kamui, but it's a new Toonami anime, and it just slaps with that kind of crazy movement. And that's when we want to do it. We want to do it right. It's the same with the comic book. We don't want to rush it because I know Victor and I both. We want this to be something that could like win an award as a comic book. We want to do it for real, and we have a lot of the story already mapped. Like you said, it's really just we want to stay focused on the game that matters right now. But if the bigger the number gets on this Kickstarter, we can actively start these other projects that we have told you. We can mention, yeah, we want to do a comic book, we want to do a video game, we want to do an animated series, but we're not telling you when those things are coming out yet, because it all depends on the growth of the company and the growth of the budget. And yeah, hitting 400K or 500K is going to really give us the resources we need to dig deep and start to get some of these balls rolling.
Truly.
Yeah.
Hey,
I mean, I feel like we're already cooking with a lot of gas here. Was that Tessa?
there was a
For sure.
question that came
For
up
sure.
for you. Where did the name NomNom come from?
NomNom. Okay. So I've never really prided myself on naming things, creatures, places, things. Um, I always feel like I have a very dry approach to it. Like there's beauty to that though. Like in a fantasy story when you're like it's in the dark woods. It's just like, well, does it have a name? No, it's just the dark woods. But like, I don't know, there's just something kind of magical about the dark woods, There's mystery, it's steeped in magic and, like we got to figure out why it's so dark and, what's at its center, what corrupted it. There's something to be said, like less is more, simplicity is key. um so with that being said, when I'm trying to think of a name for this crazy world of mine, and nom nom is just kind of came and stuck in my head, so I really couldn't tell you some of like the early names I had for it. I imagine they were pretty crazy, like like Narnia or something, like just going kind of for like a really made up name. But the more I asked myself, what is Nom Nom? Nom Nom is this world where it's survival of the fittest. It's dog eat dog. It's hard to survive in. Obviously, in this where the story begins with Ralph, people have gotten to a place of comfort and complacency with the time period. So like people have gotten the hang of living in Nom Nom, but it wasn't always that way, and it took a long time to build up to that. But the world itself, it's eat or be eaten. So I'm thinking to myself like, and I'm just playing around with sounds and words and stuff, and eventually I was just like, yeah, dog eat dog world, yum yum yum, and something along those lines, and I'm like, yum yum. Nom nom nom, and it was actually nom at first, but then I just was like, it sounds like Vietnam, short for Vietnam. So I was like, nom doesn't work, and I was like, well, what about nom nom? and admittedly, at first, I was like, it sounds a little bit too, um, I don't want to say childish. That's not the right word, but it just sounded a little bit too cartoony or too not serious enough. But the more I decided I'd stick with it. It's Nom Nom for now. And if I want to change it later, before it reaches, in a more official capacity, I will. But the more I said it, and the more I talked about it, the more I was like, it's Nom Nom. It was always Nom Nom. And it will always be Nom Nom. And the more I heard other people say it is when it really started to just like resonate as like the perfect name. And now, you know, and there's been discussions where like the joke of like eating and nom nom, and it's like everywhere, you can't escape it. It's like people are gonna go to dinner and be thinking about nom nom because they're eating. And the more I was just like, not only is it a great name and perfect for the narrative and the fantasy of it, but it's perfect from a marketing standpoint and a business standpoint, which isn't my strong suit. But the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, Nom Nom is perfect. Like it really is. And and me and Johnny have the power to make it as serious as we want. But it's there's still a lot left open to make it as silly as we want too. It works for both. Like you see Nom Nom and you might chuckle, but then you dive into it and it gets a little bit more nitty gritty than you thought, but it still works. So yeah, Nom Nom.
Dude, even if you wanted
Can
to
I
change
get
it,
a
I
nom?
wouldn't let you at this point.
Yeah, no.
No.
It's too good. Like the moment that I started talking to people about the project, I got messages from friends of mine that were like, dude, my kid is just running around the house saying nom nom. He's just like nom 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 nom, just like running around and playing with his dino toys. And I was like, well, I think we've got a hit.
Mission
You
accomplished.
know? Yeah.
So yeah, I can't imagine it with any other name now. And yeah, like I said, if I had other names on the docket, they quickly got forgotten about as soon as Nom Nom came to mind, and it was just like, you know, I liked it, and it was more of a, test the water, see if everybody else likes it, and nobody really ever questioned it. It was just like, it was just like, okay, this is Nom Nom. I mean, some people do ask that question, where did the name come from? But yeah, I don't know. It was just like one of those things that, is you you didn't realize what you had. It's just like Nom Nom, and now here we are, and it's just like it's Nom Nom, and it's beautiful and it's great, and everybody wants it, and I want everybody to want it, and it's crazy, and I just can't wait to get it out there and see people opening packs and playing it, and eventually the people's reaction to the story and stuff. Because I'm a like I said, I'm a big story nut and movie junkie, and I can't wait to see how people respond to Bryce as Ralph and stuff, because it's so much more than a card game, and it's so much more than kaiju hunting. Like I feel like people are going to be able to relate to all of this on such a amazing, personal, but yet public way that that I feel like a lot of things might not have that going for them. You might be interested in the fandom, but we really made Nom Nom in a way that you can kind of park yourself and start to make changes to the world yourself, and in small but like ripple like fashion. And I just can't wait to see how it all plays out over the next 5-10 years. I can't wait for the next
Yeah.
year, to be honest. I won't get too far ahead of myself, but
There's so much
I believe in it.
potential. That's the beauty. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. There's so much potential. It's why I'm here on the project. It's what got me interested in wanting to reach out to you, because the idea of this world that's that exists between dimensions and universes, kind of in this like nexus type of space, and it has portals and doorways that connect it to everywhere. It could connect to Earth, you know, it could connect to other universes and IPs if we wanted it
Nom
to.
Nom is Earth. Who knows? I don't know.
Exactly. It's amazing. It's amazing. And to have it be like there's dinos, there's kaiju, there's cute little critters, there's, you know, fished on characters that are like these humanoid fish people, there's modders, whatever the heck they are, with their like boat heads and, you know, inanimate objects that have now turned into a humanoid being as well. And, you know, the nothings kind of with that you know, VV vibe. I know Vic and I are huge fans of Final Fantasy, and so getting a little bit of that vibe of like the dark face and the glowing eyes is, you're going to pull me in immediately. And a lot of people, and I think when people start to step into it and they realize that the creators are just as nerdy, if not nerdier than them, and are into more anime, dinos, kaiju, comics than, you know, most people, the amount of nostalgia and the amount of directions that we intend to take this and what we already have planning, you know, I can tell you guys from experience, when Victor and I sit down and have the lore sessions where we're like, okay, you know, put the business stuff to the side today. Let's dive into our story and our world. Where did we leave off? And jumping back in, it is, it's really incredible how rich it is, and how serious we take it, and how much we respect, you know, the greats, Naruto, Yu Yu Hakusho, you know, like all these amazing shows that didn't just have cool characters in a world, but the world grew, characters aged, things change over time. You know, there's so much you can do with it. You just have to be open. You know, you just have to be open to it. And NomNom is the perfect world to jump into, because it's just nostalgia meets RPGs meets new anime style with Vic's art. You know, it's this amazing blend of like anime style, cartoon style, and, you know, dinos, kaiju, devices, artifacts, lost ruins, all this stuff. It's just, it's so rich and so beautiful to work on it. Every time we dive in, I get goosebumps, because we'll hit on some points in like the arc, you know, of Ralph or of these other characters that's like, this is what we built up to. And talking about what we've built up to, it's just like we've gotten emotional before talking about where things are going in different ways, you know, because there's just so much to it, and we love these characters in the world so much. So I can't wait for you guys to see that as well and get to share that, because it is more than just a game. It's so much more than just a game.
Well, this has been a lovely conversation, guys. We have been going for 2 hours now, so I'm gonna wrap things up. But thank you everybody for joining us for this first BlahBlah podcast. Definitely something we want to do more of. Inviting on you know, people. But before we go, we're gonna have our boy Hunter here open up a few packs and highlight a few things. Um, Before we go. And just real quick, for all of you guys that are tuning in that haven't checked out the Kickstarter, check out our Kickstarter. You can find a link in the official links right below the announcements on the NomNom Discord. We are currently at 305,000 on our goal, way past our goal. So we're doing great. So this is happening, guys. And you're definitely going to be seeing a lot more involvement from Bryce and Hunter with the project. And be sure to, you know, leave your guys' support for Bryce and Hunter, and then, you know, Tessa and Johnny as well. Please check out our website, worldofnomnom.com. It's also fun to say. And our Instagram, all our handles, please check it all out. Tessa dropped us a link right here in the chat, so please show your love and support. And I guarantee you guys, we will be investing it into the future of this project and growing it more and more with each year. And with that being said, Hunter, why don't you take the floor and get some packs open for us? Yeah, I think that one, since we got Bryce here, we should open that one. And maybe I'll give
Yeah.
you guys a little bit of a narrative on this card and why it is important and important to Bryce as a character that
Also, Hunter, you're muted.
yeah,
It was
you're
it was
muted.
building the suspense, but anyway, I'm gonna slow roll it. So here's the back. I haven't opened cards like this, like on.
Oh yeah.
That is awesome. I can't wait to get my packs.
Yo, Bryce, you gotta run to your mailbox like right after this. I think
Dude.
you're in LA, right?
Yeah, I am. I bet they're there.
It's in your mailbox right now, dude.
Oh man.
So
Exciting.
I
Let me
sent
get
you
back
guys the
onto this.
exact same amount of everything. You guys both have Volume 1 and Volume 2 team packs. You guys have, I think I sent you guys each 10 doorway packs. And then I sent you 3 of these ones. So
guys, I'm
That's
gonna probably be on Whatnot soon, like within this week or next. I have a bunch of these packs. I'll give away a couple things. So you guys can hit me on. A lot of you guys already have seen my Whatnot. So, but if you haven't, I stream on there like once or twice a week. So, but I'll be giving away some of these. So
real
next up,
quick,
we have
just
a
doorway pack.
Look at that.
But just to give you guys a little bit of narrative on that last card, the Halloween promo, if you will. It was very last minute, so I don't want to just call it a Halloween promo. It's so much more than that. That is Dread Ralph. And some of you guys may know that Ralph has the capability to tap into kaiju DNA and use it in his kaiju hunting combat, where he taps into this DNA and he undergoes some transformations. And so this Dread Ralph, you guys won't be seeing this until he's actually debuted within the comics. So hopefully you love him, but you won't get to see him for quite some time. And honestly, this is probably the lowest of the low moments for that character, Bryce. So when you step into Dread Ralph, it's gonna be emotional, I think, because Ralph is a beacon of light, and at that point in time, he is far from it, and I really think everybody's gonna feel for him, and that's why I kind of did that for Halloween. Not only was it kind of a spooky design, but I wanted to show you guys that me and Johnny do have this outlined quite well, and we look forward to telling you guys about this. But
there's
Bryce, I
also
look forward to
a red version of this card that I think there's only 11 in existence that were circulated. So, yeah, pretty exciting. Little secret.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Go
I got
see,
the doorway pack.
Go see Bryce at some conventions and get you guys' Dread Ralph signed.
Can't wait to see one in the wild. If
Yeah.
whoever gets the first one, I'll put a giant #1 on it, and I'm sharing it with everybody. That's gonna be cool.
I kind of
That's
like
awesome.
that.
We got
I know, right?
doorway set. Got the
Hammerdactyl. Speaking of dinosaurs, so as you can see, the Hammerdactyl kind of has a hammerhead shape, and you see a lot of this in the world of NomNom. Like things aren't, kind of natural in the sense of like real life and stuff. So some can take some very weird appearances that look almost like a tool or a vehicle or anything in between. So and not only that, but a lot of the nomsters in the world of NomNom, the people of NomNom have learned how to coexist with. So creatures like Hammerdactyl have filled into society with roles. So hammerdactyls have been known to help out with constructions and rebuilding after a kaiju has destroyed a city and such.
Yeah, there's good work in Mount City if you want to work in construction because the kaiju attack regularly. So you've always got work.
All right, next pack, guys.
Who is stepping through this doorway?
Scythe there,
Oh,
from the
Tessa's
brilliant
dino,
Tessa Gnome.
Triceratops.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Another dino that is quite commonly employed by people in the southern district of Mount City, which is bordered by the Hunger, which is a very, very expansive jungle, very dense, and it's constantly growing and inching into Mount City on a daily basis. So these dinos here, with their big axe-like appendage, they help keep the Hunger at bay.
Yeah, Cytheratops was actually my second design I ever did that I showed Victor, aside from Prowlumbra, who was in Volume 2 of the Protopacks. And there's an alt art of him that's going to be showing up in the base set from Kickstarter that I'm excited for you guys to see.
I guess guest artists aren't the only one doing alt arts.
Oh,
Oh shit.
No, you're fine. Tess.
okay.
Don't tell anybody.
Yeah, don't tell anybody, everybody.
Yeah, everybody, don't tell anybody.
Well, fucking Jesus, you know what I mean? Tessa's really taking up all the steam here, you know what I mean? I'm gonna open one more so we can get a variation of it. But
Yeah, can we get a Victor Larson art? Come on, man.
Hard to pull.
All right, you ready? Let's do it. Something dope, dude. Something banging. Get one of those 1 of 100 or whatever.
Piano Manx. We actually
How about
have
another
hoodie.
one of these?
Another camera deck. But we do have NomNom apparel on the website, worldofnomnom.com. So if you need a NomNom hoodie, check us out. We got a few up, and we're going to constantly update it and keep things fresh. Obviously, it's not our main focus, but gotta have some NomNom gear. By the way, Bryce, you're getting one of these shirts too. I could send you the peanut one or the big red one, but you gotta have Ralph.
Yeah, and also on that note, guys, the like Vic mentioned, the merch will be cycling on the website. So when we bring a bunch of new merch on, we'll be phasing out the old stuff. So merch will be changing over time, and some of the stuff we might not ever bring back. Like this hat is also up there. I love this NomNom hat. Just takes me right back to like my retro gaming days. And yeah, shout out to Tessa for putting these together.
All right, I got a different on this one.
Hey, Katana, slicing a dobu berry.
I did the art for it, but I did not conceive this creature. So open another one. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, keep them
you can
coming.
save the rest for your stream too.
Let's do it. One more. Bang.
It's going to be a
Bing,
Tsunamigator.
bam, boom.
It's gonna be something dope. I'm just gonna roll it out the front.
Hey, I mean,
Another Cyteratops.
we're winning. We're winning.
We'll give away one of these for sure. But anyway, that's cool. I got a jet, guys. I have to go to another meeting, but it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor.
Great hanging out, everybody. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming, guys. This was amazing.
Yes, thank you guys
it
so
was.
much.
Loved hearing you guys' backstories, man. You guys would make awesome characters in NomNom. But yeah, thank you guys so much for giving us your time and your support. This is just the beginning of the BlahBlah podcast. This is something we plan to do at least once a month with very talented individuals. Learn more about the industry as a whole. I think it's really cool that, all of us came from different backgrounds, but yet, here we are in the world of NomNom, and I think that's really cool, and I think there's something to be said about the BlahBlah podcast and getting more talent on here and, learning more backgrounds and, how all this translates to the real world and stuff, and different fandoms and communities and stuff. Let's break those walls down. Like, come on, anime fans, come on, tabletop gamers, come on, authors and artists and audio engineers and musicians. I said something when I first started Senpai Studio, and it still holds true today. All I want to do is bring some dope, talented people together to create some dope, talented, awesome stuff. Let's keep running it, guys. We're doing great, and it's just the beginning, man.
Love it, guys. Thank you,
As a
everybody.
Hey, Bryce, as a sign off, could you give us the slogan one more time?
Yeah, you ready?
Oh yeah.
The world of NomNom is waiting. Are you ready? Press start!